The movie theater looked ordinary from the outside. Flickering posters, dim lobby lights, a late-night showing almost sold out. Nothing about it suggested power lived here. A man in a plain hoodie stepped through the glass doors, baseball cap low, shoulders relaxed, no security, no spotlight. Just another face in the crowd. No one noticed him. No one whispered his name. No one knew the man quietly scanning the room owned the entire theater. Keanu Reeves moved slowly, deliberately, not as a star, not as a boss, but as a listener. The smell of popcorn hung heavy in the air. A line of customers waited at the counter, tired, distracted, human. Behind the register, two cashiers leaned close together, smiling, laughing too easily. Their laughter wasn't joyful. It was sharp, controlled, the kind that waits until it's safe. A few feet away, a young black employee pushed a mop across the floor. Head down, movements careful. Every step practiced, like someone who learned long ago how to take up less space. Keanu bought his ticket, cash only, no rush. He stood near the candy rack, pretending to read the prices when he heard it. A voice low, confident. "Did you see him earlier? Man thinks he works like he matters." Another laugh followed, softer, crueler. "Relax, people like that are invisible here." The mop stopped moving. Keanu's eyes lifted slowly. The cashiers leaned closer now, voices dropping, not because they were afraid, but because they were comfortable. Comfortable saying things they believed no one important would ever hear. They talked about customers. They talked about image. They talked about who deserved patience and who didn't. One sentence landed differently. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it made Keanu's fingers tighten around the ticket in his hand. The young employee swallowed hard and kept mopping. Like he'd heard versions of this before. Like he'd learned that reacting only makes it worse. Keanu didn't move. Didn't interrupt. Didn't reveal himself. He just listened, as the truth exposed itself without knowing it was being watched. Because what those two cashiers didn't know was that the quiet man standing 10 feet away wasn't just a customer. And what they said next would change everything. Keanu Reeves didn't believe power revealed itself on red carpets. He believed it showed up in quiet places, where people assumed no one important was watching. That belief was the reason he was here. Years earlier, when his name became synonymous with box offices and headlines, Keanu made a decision most people never heard about. He invested in a chain of neighborhood movie theaters, not luxury palaces, not celebrity playgrounds, just honest spaces where families, students, night shift workers, and kids with scraped knees could escape for 2 hours and feel equal in the dark. Movies, he believed, were a shared language. No VIP seats, no shortcuts, no hierarchy. At least that was the idea. Lately, something had been bothering him. Anonymous messages had started appearing in internal feedback systems, not dramatic complaints, not lawsuits, just fragments, short sentences that carried weight. Some staff are treated differently. Management doesn't see everything. People are afraid to speak up. No names, no dates, just quiet warnings. Executives offered explanations. Metrics looked fine, profits steady. But Keanu had learned long ago that numbers don't tell you how a room feels. So he came alone. No announcements, no secret shoppers hired, no managers warned. Just a hoodie, a cap, and time. The theater itself told a story. It sat between a discount grocery store and a closed-down bookstore, the kind of place that once held community meetings before rent got too high. The lobby floor showed years of foot traffic. Posters were slightly crooked. The soda machine hummed louder than it should. This was not a bad place. But it wasn't a gentle one either. Keanu watched people as they moved through it. Customers first. A tired couple arguing quietly about snacks. A mother counting coins before buying popcorn for her son. Teenagers pretending not to be nervous on a first date. Everyone carrying something invisible. Then the employees. Behind the counter stood Evan and Leela, fast hands, quick smiles, effortless confidence. They knew the system, knew which customers mattered, knew when to be charming and when to rush people along. They moved like they belonged everywhere. And then there was Marcus. Marcus Johnson worked the floor, early 20s, slim build, quiet posture. His uniform was clean, his shoes worn. He moved with purpose but never urgency, like someone trained not to draw attention. He didn't talk much, didn't joke with the others, didn't complain. He cleaned, he restocked, he helped customers find seats. He apologized even when things weren't his fault. Marcus had learned this rhythm early in life. Growing up, he'd been told directly and indirectly that mistakes followed him longer than others. That tone mattered, that eye contact could be misread, that silence was safer than defense. His father had once said, "Sometimes surviving the room is more important than winning the argument." So Marcus survived rooms. He worked nights to help his younger sister through school. During breaks, he watched movie breakdowns on his phone, studying camera angles and lighting. Film made sense to him. Stories had rules, meaning, endings. Real life didn't. The manager, Ronald Pierce, stood at the center of it all. Mid-40s, perfectly pressed shirt, voice smooth enough to sound kind while saying nothing at all. He prided himself on order, efficiency, keeping things professional. He didn't shout, didn't insult outright. He simply chose who deserved patience. When Evan or Leela made a mistake, it was no big deal. When Marcus did or was blamed for one, it became a lesson. Marcus had noticed it. Everyone had. Once months ago, Marcus had tried to say something, quietly, respectfully. He'd been told to focus on his work. After that, he stopped talking. Now, as Keanu watched from the corner of the lobby, he saw how the world arranged itself without announcing why. Who stood behind the counter? Who stayed on the floor? Who got laughed with and who got laughed at? Marcus passed by Keanu pushing his mop. Their eyes met for half a second. There was no recognition. No gratitude. Just a brief, practiced neutrality. Keanu felt something tighten in his chest. This wasn't cruelty with fists or shouting. This was quieter, polished, everyday. The kind that hides inside policies. The kind that survives because it's easy to deny. Keanu realized then why the messages had been so vague. Because naming this kind of harm was harder than enduring it. And as the night settled in, as the theater lights dimmed and the crowd grew comfortable, Keanu understood one thing clearly. This place didn't need saving from failure. It needed truth. And truth, he knew, only revealed itself when people believed no one powerful was listening. The rush hit just after 8:40 p.m. Not the loud kind, not opening night chaos. This was the slow, heavy wave of people who came to forget something. Couples arriving late on purpose. Solo customers avoiding eye contact. Families who had already argued in the car. Keanu stood near the wall beside the arcade machines, hands in his hoodie pockets, watching the rhythm of the place tighten. Lines formed, popcorn spilled, voices layered over one another. Pressure always revealed truth. Marcus moved faster now, swapping trash bags, wiping counters, guiding people with a quiet nod. He anticipated problems before they became visible. A blocked aisle. A child crying near the bathrooms. A soda cup abandoned in the wrong place. He handled all of it without being asked. Behind the counter, Evan leaned back against the register, chewing gum, scrolling on his phone between customers. Leela counted change loudly, sighing whenever someone hesitated too long. Their irritation wasn't evenly distributed. When a middle-aged white man complained about the temperature inside Theater 4, Evan apologized immediately, even offered free popcorn vouchers. His voice softened, friendly, accommodating. When a black woman asked for a seat change because someone had spilled soda next to her, Leela rolled her eyes before answering. Her smile never reached her eyes. Marcus noticed. He always did. He approached quietly, mop parked beside him. "I can clean that up real quick," he offered, voice steady. Leela didn't look at him. "It's already handled," she said, waving him off. It was. Marcus hesitated, then nodded and stepped back. Keanu watched the exchange closely. This was how it worked. No slurs, no shouting. just decisions layered so thin they felt accidental. Minutes later, a teenage boy knocked over a tray near the candy stand. Popcorn scattered across the floor. Butter smeared the tiles. The boy froze, eyes wide, expecting anger. Marcus moved instinctively. "It's okay," he said gently. "Happens all the time." Before Marcus could grab the broom, Evan's voice cut in. "Seriously?" Evan said loudly, looking straight at Marcus. "Didn't I tell you to keep this area clean?" The boy shrank back. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. "I was just—" Evan interrupted. "Excuses don't clean floors." There it was. The boy's mother apologized repeatedly, dragging her son away. The mess remained. Marcus cleaned it alone. Keanu felt the temperature in the room shift, not physically, emotionally. A tension only certain people noticed, the kind that sat heavy in the chest. 10 minutes later, the line thinned. The cashiers leaned toward each other again. They thought the moment had passed. Keanu stepped closer, pretending to read a poster, his ears open. Leela lowered her voice. "I swear if I had to do his job, I'd lose my mind." Evan smirked. "That's why he's doing it." Leela laughed. "True, some people are just built for the floor." Marcus was stocking napkins nearby. He heard it. His shoulders stiffened for half a second, then relaxed. He had learned which reactions were dangerous. Evan continued, voice still low but careless. "Did you see how he talks to customers, like he's scared they'll bite?" Leela leaned in. "You noticed that too. It's like he's always apologizing for existing." They laughed again. Keanu's jaw tightened. Not because of the words alone, but because of how comfortable they were saying them. How rehearsed, how sure. Marcus pushed the napkin dispenser back into place. His hands shook slightly. He turned away, moving toward the storage hallway. Leela watched him go, then scoffed. "See, can't even take a joke." Evan shrugged. "Whatever, at least management knows who actually keeps this place running." That was when Ronald Pierce appeared. The manager walked out of his office, tablet in hand, smile fixed. He scanned the lobby like a man inspecting inventory. His eyes landed on the popcorn mess that had been mostly cleaned, but not perfectly. "Marcus," Ronald called out, voice smooth. "Can I see you for a second?" Marcus froze. Customers passed between them, unaware. Marcus approached, posture respectful. "Yes, sir." Ronald gestured toward the floor. "I'm seeing a pattern here, cleanliness issues. We've talked about attention to detail." Evan looked away. Leela focused on the register. Marcus swallowed. "I cleaned that as soon as I could. It happened while I was helping." Ronald raised a hand. "I'm not interested in excuses. We all have responsibilities." Keanu felt something shift inside him. Marcus nodded slowly, understood. Ronald continued. "I need you to stay on floor duty for the rest of the night. No breaks unless I approve it." Marcus' eyes flickered. "Sir, my break." Ronald smiled thinner. "We'll discuss it later." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. The cashiers exchanged a look, not surprise, relief. Marcus stood there for a moment, alone in the center of the lobby, holding his mop like it was an anchor. Keanu stepped back into the shadows. This was the incident. Not loud, not explosive, but irreversible. Marcus pushed his frustration down and returned to work. He cleaned bathrooms. He wiped sticky armrests. He helped a lost couple find Theater 7. No one thanked him. As the night wore on, fatigue crept into his movements. His feet ached. His throat burned from swallowing words. Near closing time, a customer approached the counter angry about a refund. Evan handled it poorly, snapping back. The situation escalated. Ronald rushed in, voice raised, trying to calm things down. When the customer demanded a supervisor, Ronald turned, not to Evan, but to Marcus. "Why didn't you handle this sooner?" Ronald snapped. Marcus stared at him. "I didn't know there was an issue." Ronald shook his head. "You need to be more proactive." The customer glared at Marcus now. Marcus felt the weight of the room press down on him. Something inside him cracked, not violently, but dangerously. "I can't fix what I don't see," Marcus said quietly. The words hung there. Ronald's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone." Marcus realized what he'd done. Silence followed. Keanu felt his heartbeat slow, the way it did before impact. This wasn't just observation anymore. This was the moment where a line had been crossed. And everyone in that lobby felt it, whether they understood why or not. The silence after Marcus spoke felt heavier than noise. Customers shifted uncomfortably, sensing something had gone wrong without knowing why. The refund dispute faded into the background, unresolved, forgotten. All attention settled on the space between Marcus and Ronald, a space charged with unspoken rules. Ronald took a step closer. "Let's remember where we are," he said calmly, but his eyes were sharp now. "This is a workplace." Marcus nodded once. "Yes, sir." "Then act like it." Evan exhaled softly through his nose, a sound that almost resembled a laugh. Leela stared at the register screen with exaggerated focus. Marcus felt heat rise up his neck. Not anger, something older, something like exhaustion mixed with shame for having spoken at all. Ronald straightened his jacket. "Go finish closing Theater 3, we'll talk later." Marcus turned away without another word. As he walked down the hallway, the lights dimmed slightly behind him. The sound of his shoes echoed against the concrete floor. Every step felt heavier than the last, like the building itself was pressing him down. Keanu watched him disappear. He had seen this moment before in different shapes, different places. The quiet punishment, the delayed discipline, the warning wrapped in professionalism. Ronald turned back to the counter, his smile returning as if someone had flipped a switch. "Sorry about that," he said to the lingering customers. "Long night." Leela nodded sympathetically. Evan shrugged like none of it mattered. The system reset itself. Keanu felt something solidify inside him. He moved closer to the counter, placing his empty soda cup down. "Excuse me," he said casually. "Can I ask something?" Leela looked up. "Sure." "I noticed the employee who was just here," Keanu said. "He seemed to be handling a lot." Evan smirked. "That's his job." Keanu tilted his head slightly. "Is it?" Ronald's eyes flicked toward him. "Sir, if you have a concern, you can email corporate." Keanu smiled faintly. "I might." There was something in his tone that made Ronald pause, just for a fraction of a second. Leela leaned closer to Evan. "Customers," she muttered. Keanu stepped aside again, retreating without pushing further. "Not yet." In the storage room, Marcus leaned against a shelf stacked with cleaning supplies. The door was half closed. Fluorescent light buzzed overhead. His hands trembled now. He replayed the moment in his head, the words, the look on Ronald's face. He knew the consequences: fewer hours, worse shifts, being labeled difficult. He closed his eyes. This job wasn't his dream, but it was stability. It paid for groceries, for his sister's textbooks, for gas. He couldn't afford to lose it. Marcus inhaled slowly, grounding himself. Then he picked up a fresh trash bag and went back out. Near the back hallway, he nearly collided with Keanu. "Sorry," Marcus said automatically. Keanu stepped back. "No worries." They stood there for a second longer than necessary. "You're working hard tonight," Keanu said. Marcus nodded. "Just doing my part." Keanu studied him. "Does it always feel like this?" Marcus hesitated. He'd learned not to answer that question honestly, but something about the man's voice, calm, uncurious in the wrong way, made it feel safe. "Some nights are heavier than others," Marcus said carefully. Keanu nodded as if he understood exactly what that meant. "Well," Keanu said, "I hope you get a break soon." Marcus almost laughed, almost. "Yeah," he said, "me too." They parted ways. Closing time approached. The last movie ended. Customers trickled out, tired and loud again. Evan and Leela joked freely now, the tension gone. Ronald checked his tablet, already mentally gone for the night. Marcus wiped down counters one last time. Then Ronald called him over again. "Marcus," he said, keeping his voice low, "about earlier." Marcus stood straight. "Yes, sir." "You need to work on how you respond," Ronald said. "Perception matters. I don't want customers thinking there's tension among staff." Marcus nodded. "Understood." Ronald studied him. "Good, we'll revisit your schedule next week." That was the threat. Ronald turned and left. Marcus stood still for a long moment, staring at the counter where customers leaned their elbows without ever wondering who cleaned it. Across the lobby, Keanu watched it all. The casual dismissal, the imbalance of accountability, the way the night ended not with justice but with control reasserted. Keanu didn't feel rage. He felt clarity. As the lights dimmed and the doors locked, the staff clocked out. Evan and Leela left laughing, already free of the night's weight. Ronald exited through the office door, phone to his ear. Marcus was last. He stepped outside into the cool air, shoulders slumped, breath visible. He didn't notice Keanu standing nearby, watching the street. Keanu waited until Marcus disappeared down the sidewalk before turning back to the theater. He looked at the glowing sign above the entrance. His name nowhere in sight, but his responsibility everywhere. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a bad day. It was a pattern. And now that he'd seen it clearly, there was no going back. The confrontation had already happened. Not with raised voices or fists, but with truth brushing against power. And power, Keanu knew, never liked being seen. The next evening didn't announce itself as important. No alarms. No dramatic changes. Just the same glass doors, the same posters, the same hum of machines pretending everything was normal. Keanu arrived earlier this time. Different hoodie, same cap, same quiet presence. He wanted to see the place before fatigue softened people's edges, before the night excuses began, before everyone could blame behavior on being tired. The lobby was brighter, cleaner, controlled. Ronald Pierce stood near the counter, arms crossed, watching staff like a conductor waiting for a mistake. Evan and Leela were already energized, joking louder than necessary, feeding off each other's confidence. Marcus arrived exactly on time. Keanu noticed it immediately. Marcus didn't rush in, didn't stroll either. He moved with precision, clock in, uniform adjusted, shoulders squared, but something had changed. His silence was heavier now. Not resignation. Containment. Keanu watched Marcus begin his routine. Trash first, bathrooms next, floor checks after. Ronald called out instructions constantly, but only to one person. Marcus, make sure Theater 5 is checked twice. Marcus, those counters need another wipe. Marcus, stay visible tonight. Each directive sounded reasonable on its own. Together, they formed a pattern. Evan spilled soda near the register. Marcus cleaned it. Leela misplaced a stack of 3D glasses. Marcus found them. No acknowledgement followed. When Marcus passed the counter, Evan leaned toward Leela and murmured something. They laughed. Marcus didn't react. Keanu felt something cold settle in his chest. This was retaliation without paperwork. Punishment disguised as procedure. A group of teenagers entered, loud and careless. One bumped into Marcus, knocking his cart slightly sideways. "Watch it," the teen said sharply. Marcus steadied the cart. "Sorry." Keanu's jaw tightened. The teen hadn't apologized. No one corrected him. The line moved slowly. A woman at the register grew impatient, tapping her fingers. Leela matched her tone with thin politeness. "This line is ridiculous," the woman complained. Ronald glanced around, assessing. "Marcus," he said, "can you help speed this up?" Marcus hesitated. "I'm assigned to." Ronald cut him off. "Just help." Marcus stepped behind the counter. Evan stiffened slightly. Leela rolled her eyes. Marcus moved efficiently, scanning tickets, answering questions. He was good at this. Calm, clear. The line shortened. The woman smiled at Ronald. "You should put him here more often." Ronald nodded. "We'll see." When the rush passed, Marcus stepped back toward the floor. Ronald stopped him. "Actually," Ronald said, "I need you to stay back here for now." Marcus blinked. "Sir." "We need consistency," Ronald said. "You can't bounce around." Evan smirked. Leela avoided eye contact. Marcus nodded. "Okay." But his shoulders tightened. Keanu caught it. This wasn't about efficiency. It was about control. Later, a customer complained about cold popcorn. Evan shrugged it off. Ronald apologized on Evan's behalf. Minutes later, a customer claimed the bathroom was dirty. Ronald didn't check. He called Marcus. Again, Ronald said, irritation creeping in. We talked about standards. Marcus inhaled slowly. I cleaned it an hour ago. Ronald's voice lowered. Are you questioning me? No, sir. Then fix it. Marcus walked away. Keanu followed at a distance, unseen. Inside the bathroom, Marcus stared at his reflection for a moment. His eyes looked older than they should. He splashed water on his face. Keanu waited until Marcus stepped out. Hey, Keanu said gently, sorry to bother you. Marcus paused. Yeah. I just wanted to say, you handled that line earlier really well. Marcus studied him, suspicious but curious. Thanks. Keanu nodded. You ever think about doing more than this? Marcus gave a small, humorless smile. Every day. What stops you? Marcus glanced down the hallway. Life. Keanu accepted that answer. The night continued. Mistakes happened, small ones. Evan rang up an order incorrectly. Leela snapped at a customer. Ronald noticed neither. Marcus missed a spot on the floor near theater, too. Ronald noticed that. He didn't correct him quietly this time. Marcus, Ronald said loudly, customers nearby. If you can't handle basic tasks, we need to reconsider your role here. The words landed like a slap. Marcus froze. Every eye turned. Keanu felt his pulse quicken. Marcus swallowed. I'll take care of it. Ronald shook his head. No, I need you to understand expectations. Marcus nodded, slowly, deliberately. I understand, he said. But something was shifting. Not breaking. Hardening. As the night deepened, Keanu saw it clearly. The weight Marcus carried was no longer just exhaustion. It was calculation. Marcus began choosing silence carefully. Where to speak, where not to, how to survive another shift. Keanu recognized that posture. He had seen it on film sets, on streets, in rooms where power decided who could afford honesty. Near closing time, a little girl dropped her candy. Marcus knelt to help her, smiling gently. The girl smiled back. Her father watched, then said quietly, "Thank you." Marcus nodded. It was the only thanks he received all night. Evan watched the interaction with a sneer, always trying to be a hero. Leela laughed. Yeah, like that matters. Keanu felt his patience thin. This wasn't a single incident anymore. It was accumulation. And accumulation, Keanu knew, always led somewhere. As the lights dimmed and the final trailers rolled, Marcus stood alone near the hallway again. Keanu stood across the lobby. Two men in the same space. One with power unseen. One with dignity unseen. And both of them knew something was coming. They just didn't know who would act first. The following nights unfolded like a slow tightening knot, each shift pulling the strands closer together. Nothing dramatic happened all at once. Instead, moments stacked carefully, invisibly, until the weight became undeniable. Marcus felt it the moment he walked in, the way conversations paused, the way eyes tracked him longer than necessary. He stayed professional, shoulders straight, voice even. But inside, something stayed tense, like a held breath that never fully released. Ronald adjusted procedures without explanation. New checklists appeared with Marcus's name handwritten beside them. Tasks doubled. Expectations sharpened. Mistakes that once passed unnoticed were now documented. Evan and Leela operated freely, joking through errors, gliding past accountability. Marcus noticed how authority bent selectively, how rules hardened only in certain hands. Keanu noticed too, standing quietly among customers, absorbing the choreography of power. One evening, a projector malfunction delayed a showing. Frustration rippled through the crowd. Ronald blamed lack of oversight and called Marcus forward publicly. Marcus inspected the equipment, calmly identifying a technical fault beyond his responsibility. Ronald dismissed it, telling him to focus on solutions, not excuses. Marcus nodded, fixing the problem anyway. Applause came from customers, brief and scattered. Ronald ignored it completely. Keanu felt something twist. This was not incompetence, it was erasure. Between tasks, Marcus slipped into a storage corridor to breathe. He pressed his back against the wall, counting slowly. His phone buzzed with a message from his sister asking if he'd be home late again. He typed a short reply, reassuring, careful. Responsibility weighed heavier than exhaustion. Dreams of film school of storytelling felt distant tonight, like memories borrowed from another life. Keanu crossed paths with him again near the exit hallway. Their exchange was brief, a nod, a quiet, "You okay?" Marcus answered with a practiced half-smile. "Yeah." The lie was gentle, meant to protect them both. Keanu respected it. Trust, he knew, arrived slowly in places where power had taught caution. The weekend crowd surged again. Pressure rose. Evan snapped at a customer, triggering a complaint. Ronald smoothed it over, apologizing profusely, then turned sharply to Marcus afterward. "You need to manage these situations better," he said. Marcus stared at him, confused but silent. The blame slid sideways, landing where it always did. Keanu felt resolve harden. Observation had reached its limit. Still, he waited. That night, Marcus stayed late cleaning a spill no one else claimed. Alone in the dim lobby, he paused, looking at the movie posters glowing softly. Stories where justice came cleanly, endings wrapped neatly. He wondered when real life learned that language. The question lingered unanswered. Keanu watched from a distance, recognizing the quiet dignity in Marcus's movements. He understood now that intervention wasn't about anger or exposure alone. It was about timing, about letting truth reveal itself fully, undeniably. The system was showing its shape clearly. Soon, it would have to answer for it. As the lights dimmed and doors locked, the tension did not leave with the crowd. It stayed embedded in walls, in routines, in silence. Both men carried it home differently, Marcus with weary resilience, Keanu with focused intent. The story was moving forward, whether anyone was ready or not. The climax did not arrive with shouting or chaos. It arrived with calm. That was the most unsettling part. It was a Friday night, the kind theaters depended on, every screen full, every register busy. The lobby alive with overlapping conversations, footsteps, laughter, impatience. A perfect night for prophets, a perfect night to hide the truth in plain sight. Keanu arrived just before the rush. Same hoodie, same cap, same unremarkable presence. But inside him, something was settled. He wasn't here to observe anymore. He was here to end the silence. Marcus had been working non-stop since he clocked in. Ronald assigned him to float between tasks with no clear role, ensuring he could be blamed anywhere something went wrong. Evan and Leela noticed. They enjoyed it. "Busy night," Evan said loudly as Marcus passed, arms full of supplies. "Must be hard keeping up," Leela added, smiling sweetly. Marcus didn't respond. He had learned that silence kept him employed. The first crack came unexpectedly. A well-dressed black couple approached the counter, frustrated. Their reserved seats had been double-booked. Leela handled the situation poorly, dismissive, clipped. The husband asked calmly to speak to a manager. Ronald arrived, polished smile ready. Before Leela could explain, Ronald turned toward Marcus. "Why wasn't this handled earlier?" he asked sharply. Marcus blinked. "I wasn't aware of the issue." Ronald's smile tightened. "That's the problem." The husband frowned. He wasn't even at the counter. Ronald ignored him. The wife crossed her arms. "Why are you talking to him like that?" Silence fell. Customers nearby slowed, listening. Ronald chuckled lightly. "Ma'am, we're just resolving an internal matter." The husband shook his head. "Looks like you're blaming the wrong person." Ronald's eyes hardened for half a second before the mask returned. "Sir, if you're unhappy." Keanu stepped forward. "Not fast. Not loud. Just close enough." "I'm unhappy," Keanu said. Ronald turned, irritation already prepared, then paused. Something in Keanu's voice didn't fit the role he appeared to be playing. "Yes," Ronald asked cautiously. "I've been coming here a few nights," Keanu continued evenly. "I've noticed a pattern." Evan scoffed quietly. Leela rolled her eyes. Ronald smiled. "Sir, this really isn't the time." "I watched you blame Marcus for a projector malfunction," Keanu said. "I watched you deny him breaks. I watched you discipline him publicly for things others did privately." Each sentence landed cleanly. The crowd grew quieter. Ronald's smile froze. "Who are you?" Keanu didn't answer yet. Instead, he turned to Marcus. "Can I ask you something?" Keanu said gently. Marcus hesitated. Every instinct told him this was dangerous. But the room was already watching. Yes, Marcus said. How many times have you been blamed for something you didn't do? Marcus swallowed. Ronald snapped, you don't have to answer that. Marcus looked at Ronald, then at the floor, then back up. More than I can count, Marcus said quietly. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Ronald's voice sharpened. This is inappropriate, sir. I'm going to ask you to leave. Keanu reached into his pocket. For a moment, everyone expected anger, or money, or a threat. Instead, Keanu removed his cap. Recognition did not hit instantly. It spread. A gasp from somewhere near the soda machine. A whispered name. Phones lowering mid-text. Ronald's face drained of color. Keanu Reeves stood there, calm, present, unmistakable. I'm not leaving, Keanu said softly. I own this theater. The words landed like gravity shifting. Evan's mouth opened slightly. Leela's smile vanished. Ronald stammered, Mr. Reeves, I had no idea. That's the point, Keanu said. He turned back to the crowd. I came here because I wanted to know how people are treated when they think no one powerful is watching. He looked at Marcus again. And now I know. Ronald tried to regain control. If there's been a misunderstanding. Keanu raised a hand. There hasn't. He turned toward Evan and Leela. I heard what you said about him, Keanu continued. About customers, about who matters. Leela's voice shook. We were joking. Keanu nodded slowly. Jokes reveal comfort. He faced Ronald again. You allowed this, Keanu said. You enforced it. Ronald's voice dropped. We follow company policy. Keanu stepped closer. You are the company policy. The lobby was silent now. No popcorn crunching, no phones buzzing. Marcus stood frozen, heart pounding. He had never been seen like this before, not like a problem, not like a liability, but like truth itself. Keanu addressed the room. This young man showed patience when he was disrespected, professionalism when he was undermined, dignity when he was erased. He placed a hand lightly on Marcus's shoulder. That's leadership, Keanu said, not what you did. Ronald's jaw tightened. What are you saying? Keanu met his eyes. I'm saying you're done managing this place. A collective inhale. Effective immediately, Keanu continued. You're suspended pending a full investigation. Ronald's voice cracked. You can't do this publicly. I can, Keanu said, and I should have sooner. He turned to Evan and Leela. You'll be escorted out tonight, Keanu said. HR will contact you. Leela began to cry. Evan protested weakly. Keanu didn't raise his voice. I listened, he said simply. Then he turned to Marcus. Marcus Johnson, Keanu said clearly, I owe you an apology. Marcus's throat tightened. I built this place believing good intentions were enough, Keanu continued. They were, you paid that cost. Marcus shook his head. I just did my job. Keanu smiled sadly. You did more than that. He addressed the crowd one last time. If you witness something here tonight, Keanu said, remember this, silence protects systems, not people. The crowd erupted not in applause but in agreement. Nods, murmurs, quiet validation. Marcus felt something unfamiliar spread through him. Relief. Not victory. Relief. As the night resumed, altered, exposed, Marcus stood no longer invisible. And Keanu, finally, had answered the truth he came to hear. The theater would never be the same again. Morning arrived without ceremony. The theater doors opened again, sunlight spilling across the lobby floor, revealing scuff marks and footprints that had always been there. Posters glowed more softly in daylight. The soda machine hummed like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Keanu returned early, no disguise this time. He stood in the lobby with a small team from corporate operations, legal and human resources. Not an entourage, just professionals, quiet and alert, prepared to listen. No announcements were made, no press called. This wasn't about headlines. It was about repair. Staff gathered slowly, unsure what the day would bring. Whispers filled the air, cautious and low. Evan and Leela were not there. Ronald's office door remained closed, sealed pending review. Marcus arrived last. He paused just outside the entrance, adjusting his jacket, steadying his breath. The night before still felt unreal, like something he'd watched happen to someone else. He stepped inside, expecting eyes, judgment, questions. Instead, Keanu approached him calmly. "Good morning, Marcus," Keanu said. Marcus nodded. "Morning." No spotlight, no speech, just respect. Keanu gestured toward a quiet seating area. "When you're ready, I'd like to talk." Marcus agreed. They sat across from each other, the space between them unguarded. Keanu didn't rush. He didn't interrogate. He asked Marcus to describe his experience in his own words, the patterns, the moments, the silence that followed. Marcus spoke carefully at first, then more freely as he realized he wasn't being evaluated. He wasn't being doubted. For the first time, his account wasn't treated as an inconvenience. Keanu listened without interruption, taking notes himself. When Marcus finished, Keanu nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said, "for telling the truth even when it cost you." Later that day, Keanu met with the remaining staff. He didn't lecture, he didn't threaten. He acknowledged failure. "I believed systems would self-correct," he said. "They don't. They protect themselves unless people are protected first." New policies were announced, not as paperwork, but as commitments. Anonymous reporting handled by third parties, rotational leadership oversight, clear accountability metrics tied to behavior, not just performance. Mandatory bias training grounded in real scenarios, not corporate slogans. Most importantly, reporting would no longer disappear into silence. Some employees looked relieved, others uncomfortable. Growth often felt like that. Marcus was offered options, not as rewards but as choices. A paid training program in operations and film programming, a mentorship track, the ability to move departments or locations if he wished. Marcus asked for time. He went outside during his break, sitting on the curb where he often ate lunch. He called his sister, telling her everything. She laughed, then cried, then told him she was proud. When he returned, he had his answer. "I want to stay," Marcus told Keanu, "but not the same way." Keanu smiled. "Good." In the weeks that followed, the theater slowly found a new rhythm. Marcus no longer floated without purpose. He trained new hires. He assisted with scheduling input. He spoke up in meetings, not loudly but confidently. His presence changed the room without needing permission. Customers noticed too. Not because Marcus was suddenly different, but because the environment was. Respect had become visible. Mistakes were corrected evenly. Apologies were real. Keanu visited often, sometimes announced, sometimes not. He watched, listened, adjusted. He understood now that leadership wasn't intention, it was attention. One evening after closing, Marcus stayed behind to watch a movie alone. The screen flickered to life, filling the empty theater with sound and light. Keanu slipped into a seat a few rows back, unnoticed. As the credits rolled, Marcus didn't rush to leave. He sat there, breathing, letting the story end cleanly. Keanu stood quietly and walked out. Outside, the theater sign glowed against the dark. It no longer represented just ownership. It represented responsibility. And inside, a young man who had once been invisible sat upright in his seat, finally seen, not because someone powerful intervened, but because the truth was allowed to stand where silence used to be. That was the resolution. Not perfection, but dignity restored. And a system finally forced to listen. Some injustices don't announce themselves. They don't arrive with shouting or violence. They live in routines, in who gets believed, in who gets corrected publicly and forgiven privately, in who is expected to endure discomfort so others can stay comfortable. Marcus wasn't treated unfairly because he lacked skill or effort. He was treated unfairly because the system assumed his silence meant consent. And systems love silence. They depend on it. This story isn't about a famous man exposing wrongdoing. It's about what happens when power finally listens instead of explaining itself. Because the truth is simple, how people are treated when they think no one important is watching reveals the real culture of a place. Not the mission statement, not the training videos, the everyday choices, the small humiliations, the casual dismissals. Marcus didn't ask to be rescued. He asked to be seen, and when he was, everything else followed: accountability, change, dignity. This story reminds us that respect isn't a reward for compliance. It's a baseline. It reminds us that professionalism without humanity is just control dressed up as order. And that silence, no matter how patient, should never be mistaken for weakness. For those who carry their pain quietly, your experience is real even if it's been ignored. For those with power, listening is not passive, it's a responsibility. And for everyone watching, the moments that define us aren't always loud. Sometimes they're the ones where we choose to speak, even when the room isn't ready. Because the truth doesn't need volume to be powerful. It only needs someone brave enough to let it stand. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that dignity is never invisible, even when the world tries not to see it.